At the beginning of the story, we met a young man named Junwoo, who loved playing online video games. Most of his time was spent gaming with his friends over the internet. He lived in an apartment with his mom, dad, and younger sister. One normal day, while his parents were out for work, Junwoo stayed home playing games like always. But suddenly, breaking news appeared on TV. Reporters were saying that a dangerous virus had spread across the city. The infected people had completely lost control of their minds and were turning into zombies. The virus was spreading fast, and those infected were violently attacking anyone around them. Things had gotten so bad that the military was being forced to kill infected civilians just to regain control. The whole city had fallen into chaos, with terrified people running everywhere trying to survive. At first, Junwoo couldn't believe what he was hearing. But when he looked outside his window, he froze in fear. Everything on the news was true. People really had turned into zombies, and they were attacking each other in the streets below. He was completely shaken. Just then, his neighbor suddenly showed up and forced his way into Junwoo's apartment. Without saying much, the man rushed straight into the bathroom. Junwoo nervously turned back to the news, where they explained that the virus quickly changed the human body. The infected would develop blood-red eyes and pale skin. When Junwoo looked at his neighbor again, he noticed the man's eyes had turned bright red. That was enough for him to realize the truth. His neighbor was infected too. Panicked, Junwoo somehow managed to force the man back outside and lock the door behind him. A moment later, Junwoo received a message from his parents. They told him they were safe and begged him to stay alive no matter what. Reading that message filled him with relief. At least his family had survived for now. After that, he wrote the word alive on a note and stuck it over a family photo. He did it to keep himself motivated, so he wouldn't feel completely alone. Then he sealed up the apartment as tightly as possible and even pushed the refrigerator against the front door, hoping no zombie could break in. Next, Junwoo made a sign that said "Stay alive" and posted it online through his social media, hoping someone out there would see it and realize he was trapped in the middle of the outbreak. But days passed, and no one came. When Junwoo flew his drone outside to check the area, he discovered something horrifying. There wasn't a single normal person left in his neighborhood. Everyone had either died or turned into zombies. We also learned that these zombies were strangely different. Their senses had become extremely sharp. Their hearing and eyesight were stronger than ever. Even more disturbing, they still continued doing the same things they used to do before turning. People who once worked office jobs were still walking to work every morning like mindless routines, even after becoming monsters. Meanwhile, Junwoo came up with an idea. He could use the radio on his phone to call for help, but there was one problem. He didn't have wired earphones, and his phone needed them as an antenna to activate the radio. Every day, Junwoo began recording videos of himself, talking about his situation and the struggles he was facing. But slowly, his food and water supplies started running out. One night, he looked outside and saw a police officer desperately fighting off a group of zombies. The officer fought bravely, but he couldn't hold them back for long. The zombies overwhelmed him and tore him apart. Junwoo tried to distract them and save the officer, but nothing worked. Then suddenly, one zombie managed to open Junwoo's apartment door and rushed inside. Before it could reach him, Junwoo quickly climbed over the balcony and hung from the edge. The zombie thought he had jumped to his death, so it mindlessly leaped after him, falling all the way down and dying on impact. That was how Junwoo barely managed to save his own life. Now that all the food in Junwoo's apartment had run out, he started drinking the whiskey his dad had left behind just to survive. At first, it gave him comfort and helped him forget the nightmare around him. But after drinking too much, he began having visions. In his mind, he saw his family safe and smiling, and even imagined hugging his sister again. For a brief moment, it felt like everything was normal. Then suddenly, the phone network dead since the zombie outbreak began came back online. Junwoo received a message from his father, but instead of hope, it brought devastating news. The zombies had attacked his family, and every one of them had been killed. Hearing that completely shattered him. In pain and rage, Junwoo started smashing things around the apartment. Overcome with grief, he stormed outside without thinking, but the hallway was full of zombies, and they immediately rushed at him. Terrified, he barely managed to run back inside and lock the door. Now broken inside, Junwoo felt there was nothing left to live for. He didn't want to be torn apart by zombies, and he refused to become one of them. So he made the painful decision to end his own life. As he prepared to hang himself, something suddenly caught his eye. There, in another apartment, was a woman named Yoo-bin, another survivor who was still alive. Junwoo and Yoo-bin began communicating through signals. For the first time in days, Junwoo saw another human being alive, and it filled him with hope. Yoo-bin had created traps around her front door to protect herself. If any zombie tried to enter, it would get caught. Soon enough, one zombie walked right into the trap. Yoo-bin was forced to kill it. She didn't want to hurt anyone, because deep down she was kind-hearted, but she had no choice. If she didn't act, the zombie would have killed her instead. When Yubin realized Junwoo had been starving for days, she tried to send him food using a rope. First, she tied a bowl to it and attempted to throw it across, but it didn't reach him and got stuck halfway. Then Junwoo came up with an idea. Using his drone, he guided the rope into his apartment and secured it. Finally, he was able to pull the food toward him. After days of hunger, he was overwhelmed with happiness. But then something dangerous happened. A zombie noticed the rope hanging from Yubin's apartment and started climbing it. Before becoming infected, the man had been a firefighter, so even as a zombie, his body still remembered how to climb ropes. The rope was tied to a table inside Yubin's apartment. As the zombie climbed higher, the rope pulled the table hard enough to slam into Yubin's head, knocking her unconscious. When Junwoo saw the zombie climbing toward her, he quickly used his drone to stop it. During the struggle, the drone even cut the zombie's face, but it barely slowed him down. At the same time, several zombies began trying to break into Junwoo's apartment, distracting him. He lost control of the drone and the climbing zombie grabbed it. Just when things looked hopeless, Yubin regained consciousness. She grabbed the zombie's arm, cut it, and sent him falling to the ground below, where he finally died. Later, Junwoo once again had no food left, so he took a huge risk. He cleverly stole a key from a zombie and entered that zombie's apartment to search for supplies. Inside, he found food, a pair of wired earphones, and some hiking gear. It turned out the man, now a zombie, had loved hiking before the outbreak. Junwoo also discovered the dead body of the zombie's wife inside the apartment, but before he could process it, the zombie suddenly returned and attacked him. Junwoo barely escaped and ran back to his own room. Once safe inside, he used the wired earphones to turn on the radio app on his phone, hoping to contact someone for help, but there was no signal. His plan failed. After that, Junwoo sent some of the food he found in a walkie-talkie to Yubin. Thanks to that, the two of them were finally able to talk to each other directly. They were both incredibly happy, because after so many lonely days, this was the first real conversation either of them had with another person. To survive their thirst, Junwoo and Yubin each kept containers on their balconies. Whenever it rained, the water collected inside them, and they drank it to stay alive. Suddenly, every zombie in the entire apartment complex began wandering around at once. The sound of all their footsteps was so constant and heavy that it almost sounded like rain falling outside. In a rush, Yubin accidentally dropped some items in her apartment. The noise instantly caught the zombies' attention. Because their hearing had become incredibly sharp, they all started moving toward her room. When Junwoo realized that every zombie was heading straight for Yubin and her life was in danger, he quickly came up with a plan. He used the landline phone to call a random apartment somewhere else in the building. As soon as the zombies heard the ringing telephone coming from another room, they changed direction and rushed toward that sound instead. Thanks to Junwoo's quick thinking, Yubin was saved. Afterward, Yubin told Junwoo that she had never seen any zombies on the 8th floor of his building. That meant the 8th floor might be completely safe, and they could possibly find food and supplies there. Junwoo agreed, and for the first time, both of them stepped out of their apartments. But the hallway was already packed with zombies. A brutal fight for survival began as they struggled to push through the infected. Somehow they barely managed to escape and make it into the elevator. Using the elevator, they reached the 8th floor. But even there, zombies suddenly appeared. Before the creatures could attack, a man showed up out of nowhere and saved them. He quickly brought both of them into his apartment. Inside, the man offered them food and water. Junwoo was overwhelmed with relief and immediately began eating, but Yubin felt suspicious. She sensed something was wrong and refused to touch anything at first. However, when she saw Junwoo eating safely, she finally decided to eat too. Sadly, Yubin's instincts had been right all along. The man had secretly mixed sleeping drugs into the food and water. After consuming it, both Junwoo and Yubin lost consciousness. The truth was horrifying. The man's wife had turned into a zombie, and he had been keeping her alive in another room. To feed her hunger, he planned to sacrifice Junwoo and Yubin. He dragged Yubin into the room where his zombie wife was locked away. When Junwoo woke up, he grabbed a gun and pointed it at the man, demanding that he bring Yubin back. But the man didn't care at all. Meanwhile, Yubin acted fast. She managed to tie a cloth over the zombie woman's mouth, then shoved her toward the man. In the chaos, the infected wife bit her own husband. Now there was no choice left. Junwoo and Yubin were forced to kill both the man and his zombie wife, but the gunshots created a new disaster. The loud noise attracted every zombie nearby, and they all started rushing toward the apartment. Seeing the massive horde coming for them, Junwoo lost hope. He believed no one could save them now. Junwoo even asked for the gun, saying she would rather die than be torn apart by zombies. Then suddenly, they heard the sound of a helicopter outside. They rushed to the window and saw that it was real. A helicopter was flying nearby. They immediately realized it had to be a rescue team. With one final burst of courage, the two of them risked everything and fought their way through the zombies to reach the rooftop terrace. But when they got there, no helicopter was waiting. Worse still, more zombies were climbing toward them from every direction. Surrounded and out of options, they understood this might be the end. With their gun, they tried one last time to hold the zombies back. And then, the helicopter finally appeared. It had truly come to rescue them. Military soldiers opened fire, killing the zombies and saving both Junwoo and Yubin. Soon after, Junwoo's phone signal returned. When he checked it, he saw that so many of his friends had sent messages while he was trapped. In the final scene, we were shown the same social media post Junwoo had uploaded at the very beginning, the one asking for help. By then, it had received 1,259 likes. Because of that single post, people had discovered that Junwoo was still alive and trapped there. And with that powerful moment, the story came to an end.